My guest is not a stranger, especially if you're in the Paterson, New Jersey area. It is a name that will be familiar to you, and it's one that I met some years ago when her first book was being released, and she's done so many things in between that time. So Apostle Lilisa Mimms, or Dr. Lilisa Mimms, is the senior pastor and founder of the Beginnings Christian Outreach Ministries, Incorporated in Paterson, New Jersey, where God is moving mightily by His Spirit. She holds a Doctorate of Ministry since 2009 from the Christian University, where she was Suma Cum Laude of her graduating class with a 4.0 and received 8 awards for her outstanding academic achievements. Her apostolic end-time messages have captivated the hearts and lives of many through conferences, workshops, teaching, counseling, lectures, and annual conferences. She is well known for her prophetic anointing and humble disposition to serve and love the people of God. The grace on her ministry has extended her past local and state borders and has opened doors internationally to the land of Africa, where countless souls have been saved, set free, healed, and delivered. In October 2011, she became an author, and I believe that's when we met, and self-publisher of her first book entitled, You Are Worth More Than That, which she believed will help people in all walks of life to realize who they are and what value they have to become a beautiful soaring butterfly. March 21st, 2013, Apostle Mimms was awarded the Dorcas Timeless Woman Award from the Heart of Hannah. She was the 2013 recipient of Senator Nellie Poe's Women in History Award. She was also the 2014 recipient of the Diamond Award from the Michael G. Rivers Scholarship Foundation. On November 4th, 2014, she was elected as Commissioner of the Paterson Board of Education. I remember that election well. On July 22nd, 2016, she was appointed by the mayor as a commissioner on the planning board for the city of Paterson, New Jersey. Lilisa has been interviewed on Trinity Broadcast Network, that's TBN, and Sayer TV, and preached 2 segments on Sayer Television in Eldoret, Kenya, Africa, which has been viewed by billions of people all over the world. Apostle Lilisa Mimms is the Esther of this hour and truly called for such a time as this. And this bio does not include the fact that now Dr. Mimms also sits on the Paterson City Council. Welcome to the Reading Circle microphones, Apostle Dr. Lilisa Mimms. Dr. Mimms, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Marc Medley. Thank you so much for this great opportunity to be a part of your awesome show. And, to follow in footsteps after someone of your brilliance, it's just humbling for me. So thank you so much for the opportunity to come on the Reading Circle.
Well, I'll tell you what, bless you, and thank you for the kind words. Thank God. As we both know, God gets the glory. So we thank God. We'll thank God on that one. Actually, I am grateful and thankful because this is my 18th year. I'm 18 years on the air. Had somebody told me in 2001 that I'd still be doing this in 2018, going into 19. I'd have looked at them like they had 3 heads, but you never know what God is going to do. We really don't. And speaking of that, like I said, where the bio stopped, and since that time was your election to the City Council of Paterson.
Yeah.
So congratulations on that.
For 18 years.
Well, thank you. And see, as I was talking about you prior to you coming on the air in the 6 o'clock hour, I was telling the folks how we met years ago, back when your first book was done, back in 2011, it was a authors forum that was sponsored by the Women's Guild of Gilmore Church, of the Gilmore Church. And Stephanie, I'm trying to think of Stephanie's last name. She called me up one day, asked me would I moderate the session. And you were one of the authors in that session. And you came on the show at that time to talk about the first book, You Are Worth More Than That. And since that time, I've watched your evolution. Because at that time, I don't think you had purchased the church yet. I think at that time, Reverend Butler still had that church. Grace had it. And at that time when they left, next news I knew, I saw your name up on the front of the church, and I said, okay, I know. And then next thing he was on the school board. I'm like, all right, I know. And then next thing was city council.
Yeah. God, he's amazing because, we never know the journey of where God's going to take us because he navigates and orders our steps. So, for me, I was in corporate America for over 20 years. So I thought, okay, I'm here, I'm at this executive level, and I'm going higher, in corporate America. And then in 2008, God shifted all of that and said, no, I'm calling you out of that work into full-time ministry, and you're going to be able to go and to shepherd the people. So, of course, we don't understand that, and then we're in denial, and then God has to kind of shake us up and say, no, these are some things you're going to do. So, the ministry part, launched the church January 4th, 2009, and then even doing that work, traveling the country, becoming an apostle to the body of Christ, covering many churches throughout the country. But then God called me into the political arena, which still is a shock to me. I don't think I've waken up out of this dream as of yet. There's still some days that I pinch myself like, wow, God called you to be a pastor. And I've been preaching for 25 years, but pastoring
all right now
for 10 years, But God, He knows exactly where He wants us to be, and the transformative power of God is always at work when we step into the arenas and we fulfill those assignments. And so that's what I'm most grateful for, that I know wholeheartedly that I am really doing God's work. It doesn't matter if it's in the church, whether it's in the political arena, and just in daily life as a public servant. That's really what it's about. That it's the work of the kingdom, and it's transformative. And that's what I'm really excited about.
No, you're absolutely right. I'm glad you brought up the difference. And as a matter of fact, I want you to talk a little bit about the difference between preaching and pastoring, because many people get those two things confused, or they use them interchangeably. There is a difference between the two. There's a difference between preaching and pastoring. Talk a little bit about that, and we'll shift gears as we go along.
Absolutely. That's a great question, because I help a lot of people, because sometimes, you can get called to preach a message and get a few thank yous or that blessed me, and now all of a sudden off to the races, I'm a pastor. Not true. Preaching is only 10% of the pastoral role, 10%, because preaching the message is one part, but as a pastor, your responsibility is to feed the sheep. That means you're there for the corrective nature, rebuking nature, reproving nature, and the training and developing and the cultivation. So just because you can preach does not mean that you've been called to pastor.
Correct.
And so a lot of times people get that confused because they go, well, they like my preaching, yeah, but what's your character like, right? Have you been through the trenches? Because, the Bible talks about how He sends them to Jerusalem, then Judea, then Samaria, and the uttermost parts of the earth. And so a lot of people want to go to the uttermost parts, but have not been proven in Jerusalem. And so you have to make sure that in your preaching that you're under a covering, you have a pastor, you're being mentored and trained so that you don't navigate and get off course. Because it's nothing wrong with being a good minister in the church and not be the pastor has that responsibility that God has graced to cover the entire church. He said, I've given some to be apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teaching for the perfecting of the church so that we can come together and be fitly joined. So you have to understand and navigate what's my part. Because if the arm is doing the work of a leg, then the leg and the arm won't operate to the fullness of its capacity. So there's a total difference. So I always tell people, just because you can preach don't mean you can pastor.
Absolutely.
As a pastor, you definitely can preach and you can teach. But you got to ensure that just because you preach that good message or they use you for Easter Sunday or Mother and Father's Day does not mean that you've been called to pastor the church, because there's a grace that's connected to it. And for the most part, pastors are very mercy motivated. You know how something happens,
right,
and a member of the church will go, you should sit them down, pastor. I would say this to them. And those are the telltale signs that those individuals are definitely not called to be pastors.
Right.
Because even as pastors, in our human nature, we would probably want to respond that way too. But it is the Spirit of God that kicks in and tells us how to operate as the Lord does. And so that's where we're clear to ensure what God has called us to do versus what our flesh pushes us to do.
Absolutely.
You have to make sure that you're operating by the Spirit of God and not by the fulfillment of your flesh.
No, you're absolutely right. And I find that in particularly working in school systems and all walks of and even in the churches, like you just kind of mentioned it in a certain way, you have people that their mindset is so punitive. Everything is about punishment. When, to be honest with you, really what makes everything work is love. And that mercy piece you were just talking about is it. I was sharing earlier in the 6 o'clock hour, I don't watch a whole lot of TV, but there are some shows that really do capture my interest. And usually it's autobiographies or biographies or documentaries or what have you. And there's this show called Behind the Doors, or something like that. But it's usually entertainers that passed away young, or what have you, tragically or whatever. But last night I was watching, it was on Paul Walker and it was on John Ritter, who was on Three's Company whenever I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And in both of those instances, what the people talked about was how giving and loving they were. I mean, out of all their accomplishments, being great actors, this and that, the thing that stood out for the people was how much love they showed. As a matter of fact, in both episodes, people referred to them as light. Like they would be the light as they came in as you came in their presence, they would be the light on the set. They would be so I'm saying all that to say, we are put here to love, to be lights, to show mercy. But there are people who are regardless of whether you're in the church, whether you're out in the field or whatever, they're very punitive mindset. So when I heard you say that, well, Pastor, you need to set them down and this, that, and the other. And I know you know Reverend Clayton because that's my pastor in terms of that. And he shares this story all the time. And I know it to be true. But a lot of times with the girls, the teenage girls would find themselves pregnant or what have you, unaware or whatever. There would be some saints that would be like, oh, they need to stand up in front of the church and apologize. And so Reverend Clayton was very clear. He said, okay, I'll have them do that if you stand up and apologize for what you've done. Absolutely. If you stand up in front of the church and apologize with them, then okay, absolutely, we can do that. But if you're not willing to stand up and do that about you, then I'm not going to have them do it.
Absolutely. That is some strong wisdom. That is some strong wisdom. Because, we have to be able, it's just like with our children, right? We don't punish them for everything.
Right.
But we don't need to have this hard corporal punishment, right?
Right.
So we have to be able to progressively do it. And then we have to understand the person. Because sometimes, I may be able to give a soft correction to someone, but someone else, the soft won't work. So it needs to be a little harder, and then you still have to understand that there's still individuals, and we're after souls, right? We're in the
right.
So we have to make sure that we're making sure that they come back.
That's correct.
People that, it doesn't matter what you do. I tell people all the time, they may not stay in your church. Don't be offended. Don't get discouraged by that. Like sometimes people just are navigating their way through. You pray God's blessing over them. You love on them. And when you see them, you greet them with the love of God. Because if you feel like they left you or you take it personal, that means you really don't understand the heart of God.
Right.
Because these are really God's people. We're just the under-shepherds of the church. But these are God's people. They're not our people to hoard them to ourselves and to say, don't you go anywhere. These are all God's children. And so we have to pray as leaders. We have to ask God, how do we pastor them? How do we instruct them? How do we cultivate them? Because God knows them best. Even as much as we think we know about those individuals, we don't know them like God does. He is the craftsman, right? He is the original designer of the people. And so when we go to him, he knows exactly what the specs were when he designed them. He knows the idiosyncrasies. He knows all those things. So when I'm in prayer, I'm like, okay, God, you show me what I need to do for your people. What is the word for your people? And a word that will penetrate me as well. And so that's how, God navigates us as pastors and leaders to make us more effective in the work of ministry.
No, that's absolutely right. And one of the things when I asked you the question about the difference between pastoring and preaching, because there is a difference and you explained it extremely well. But the other thing is and I know even as being the principal of a school, a lot of people look at whoever the leader is or the leadership chair, and folks think it's easy to do. I mean, folks think it's easy to be pastor. Oh, I can do that. I'd love to be able to. Folks think it's easy to be principal, but have no clue of the behind the scenes things that has to be done or go on. Talk a little bit about that, and then I want to shift into being a pastor and politician. I want to talk a little bit about that because we're going to get to your book too, but since I have you here, you're like a Renaissance woman. You prove that people can do more than one thing. And I'm not mad at folks who focus just on one thing. I don't happen to be one of them. But for people who only do one thing, I'm not mad at them. But there are folks who show, and God uses to show that you can do more than just one thing. And so I'll talk a little bit about this whole notion of people think being in the leadership chair is easy. And then let's talk a little bit about being a pastor and politician.
Yeah. So, easy is not really the, people say easy, and you think of the sleepless nights. You think of the going to the hospitals in the middle of the night, going to the hospitals in the early morning, going in the middle of the afternoon. You think about eulogizing funerals of individuals that were very close to you or family members that are very close to you and see them go through the agony. You talk about when it comes to the hits of ministry, the hits of people talking about you, criticizing you, lying on you, all those things. And so when people think it's easy, it appears that way because of the grace of God. But what God allows us to do is to operate through his strength and not our own talents and abilities. So I tell people, even though it may appear to be that way, I could stand, I could do a wedding. I could stand and I could do a funeral. But prior to you preaching these messages, there are hits that happen. You have to endure those messages.
Right.
You endure those words before it happens. As a pastor, people don't understand the sleepless nights. They don't understand the attacks that come to your family, the attacks that come to your loved ones just for the sake of ministry. They don't understand how you have to go through hurdles. I'm a woman preacher, so I can talk about this.
That's right.
I'm a woman preacher, being able to have traveled to many countries and internally in the United States. There are still some places that don't even accept women preachers or women pastors. I've been to churches where they called me sister. I had to stand on the bottom, could not go up to the podium. I've been to places where I could not wear lipstick.
Wow.
And I had to wear flat shoes. There has been many things I've endured as a woman preacher and a woman pastor and as an apostle to the body of Christ. So there's different things that you have to endure. But one of the things I tell people, because people say, well, I can go there and I can say this because God told me to do it, but it's not true, because what happens is when you have to understand the order of that house.
Right.
So if at that house they're calling you to preach and they say don't wear lipstick, you can't wear lipstick. I don't care how much you like your new MAC lipstick or whatever you wear, you can't wear it, right?
That's right.
If they say wear your hair pulled back, like we were trained through my former pastor, Apostle Joel D. Rudolph Sr., he trained us to be as modest as we could.
Right.
So we were trained, and that's why a lot of times you'll see me preaching in robes and all that, because that's why we were trained. But as I started doing itinerant ministry, when I started traveling on these platforms, there's a shift. So they're more into wearing, my normal dress or whatever at those platform levels. So it was kind of a difference for me, because I was trained, to make sure my hair is pulled back, make sure you're in a robe, make sure you're in a suit, all those type of things. So I learned, I learned that, I was like, okay. So now I'm navigating around. So even in this area, I'm very conscious of what I wear, conscious of what I say, settings I'm in, always doing that WWJD, what would Jesus do, doing the counting backwards and all those things. So you have to always remember the capacity in which you're operating in, because for me, it's not about a title.
Right.
It's all about him, because the Bible says the greatest among you are those who serve. So a lot of people go, well, what title do I call you? What do I call you? And I go, servant.
There you go.
Because the Greek word for minister is diakonos.
Correct.
So I'm like, you just call me a servant. That's who I am. I'm a public servant. I'm doing the work of God. I'm serving the people, and wherever he tells me to go, that's where I am. You know, it's just like Ruth says to Naomi, wherever you go, I go.
That's right.
God, I go. Your God will be my God, and your people will be my people. And that's what I'm doing. I'm just doing, you know, the work of God. So I'm really humbled. Like, I really am humbled, because a lot of people don't know that when God called me out of my job in 2008, I was making $200,000 a year.
Wow.
I was a corporate executive. I remember the limousines picking me up, and I'm born and raised in Paterson. Limos picking me up from my door, taking me to the airport, traveling all over for Verizon, helping to develop and be a part of the Files team before Files was Files, right?
Are you with Verizon?
Yes.
I was with AT&T. I was with AT&T for 15 years before I went into education. We had that commonality.
Wow.
And but in any of yes, I understand what you're saying, and what you said a couple of minutes ago is a perfect segue to the second part of my question about the politician piece, because some people don't see the connection between being a preacher, pastor, politician, even though it has been done. I remember in the city when Reverend Rowe was on the city council, and a lot of people really don't see how beneficial it is to have the God connection or the religious connection or that connection on a political or a city board like that. But back to what you just said about being a servant. I mean, I can't think of a better, because I do get it with politics. Sometimes people feel like you have to compromise and yada, yada, yada. But at the same time, you bring that mercy, you bring that compassion, you bring that other insight that might not be there. But talk a little bit about what is it like to be the politician? So,
you know, it's funny, because I remember adopting my very first school. I adopted back in 2008. So I said, this is my alma mater, School 21. I'm going to adopt School 21, right? I said, let me go talk to the principal. I would like to adopt this school. What are your gaps? What are the deficits? I want to be here to be a resource, an ally, and a bridge builder. And so he was like, absolutely, come in. All of my kids went there. I went there. My sister goes there, my nieces, everybody, my nephew. So I went there, started being in the building probably 8 hours a day, like for free. No money, just being there helping with parents, helping with students that had concerns and issues and all types of stuff. And then the principal approached me and said, would you like to be our liaison? Like, I think you would be great. So I'm like, well, what do I do? He said, the same thing you're doing. So I was like, sure. So I ended up working in the school. Still wasn't concerned about whatever. It was like 3 hours a day. I still was there like 6, 7, always giving the money back to the school, was able to bridge a gap with the churches. There used to be a pizza store across the street. We used to do pizza, $1 pizzas on Friday. We did some big initiatives for Thanksgiving and Christmas, where the stores got involved. Seatown, it used to be Food Basics back then, which is now Fresh Galore, but all these stores, ShopRite, Partner, different places, and we did all these initiatives. And then as I was sitting there, different schools started adopting me. So I got to the point, had about 10 schools now that I was adopting because of the work at the first school, School 21. And so I was like, wow, how can I affect all the schools? Like, how can I touch them? And so God spoke to me and had me run for school board. So I was sitting on the school board, still navigating, pushing, doing the work of the kingdom, because it was about the kids and the parents. As I was there, God was like, you're not going to stay here, long. You're going to do what I've called you to do, but there's a greater work. And so I'm like, okay, what does that mean? We hear God say it. We don't know what that means. And then all of a sudden, I'm running for the council. So even in this role, I'm the city council, when I was on school board, when I was volunteering in the schools, all of it is still the work of ministry, because it's not about the political aspect of, because when people hear politician, they think of corruption. They think of compromise. They think of not doing the right thing. And I just believe that God still speaks in every area. God needs us in the political arena. He needs us in the judicial system. He needs us in education. He needs us in the secular war in corporate America. He needs his servants on the ground, his soldiers in every area of this country and of the world.
That's right.
So I remember asking God, because now I'm new. I got elected in May, sworn in July. So I was asking God about 2 months ago. I said, God, what is the project that you want me to do? I'm always asking God, because sometimes we can go to these roles,
right,
and all of a sudden you get caught up in it, and you're not fulfilling your assignment. And I
right.
believe, and I want to keep saying that to people that are listening, fulfill your assignment. There's going to be other things that people are doing, and you can easily get distracted or become like Martha, cumbersome about and not doing what God called you to do. It's like Jesus told Martha, Mary chose the needful part, and you got to be able to do the needful part that God is calling you to do. And so as I'm praying and asking God, what do you want me to do? And he said to me, turn the lights on. And I'm like, turn the lights on? What are we talking about, turn the lights on? Because God talks to us, it sounds like a riddle.
Right.
So I'm like, turn the lights on. And so I was like, okay, turn the lights on. And he said, when I said, let there be, there was. And the lights
right.
I'm like, so I'm thinking he's saying to me, just ride down streets and go, let there be and there will be. Let there be. So, so I was at a lady's house. She had an issue in one in Bearhoughton Street, and she was talking about prostitution and the crime and all this stuff happening in her area. And all of a sudden, it hit me like, boom, turn the lights on. And I'm like, what does turn the lights on have to do with prostitution and crime and whatever? And then God said to me, he said, a lot of the lights on this strip, this entire strip from East 18 all the way down, the lights are either out or they need to be replaced. And I was like, really? He said, yeah. So I mentioned this to the lady. I said, I think this will help with curbing some of the activity. So I reached out to DPW department, and sure enough, those lights are on. Turn the lights on. Then I went to a meeting, right? I was like, let me go to this meeting as councilwoman at large because I represent the entire city. So I'm down in the first ward. So I'm in the meeting, and so some residents, they had complaints. So I'm always walking with some type of paper or envelope in my pocketbook or something. Because if I hear something, I'm like, okay, how do we get this done? And so in that room, they were like, these individuals, maybe 4 of them, were talking about the lights on North Main and the lights on the bridge, the bridges that are out. So I'm like, okay, let me write that down. I was like, okay, let me get it done. So the first thing that they said was, well, we've been trying for years. Nothing has ever happened. And I'm like, turn the lights on. And they were like, what? I said, turn the lights on. I said, the Lord said, let there be, and there was. So I'm saying, turn the lights on. And so they all started laughing. But when the day came that these lights went on, I called those residents. And I said, I want all of us to say it at the same time, turn the lights on. And so I'm starting to get the whole community involved. I'll have a flyer that will be going out next week. It will be called the Turn the Lights On Project throughout the city of Paterson. If there's anywhere that's a light missing or is not on, to report it, give the location or the pole number so we can turn the lights on. Because at the end of the day, public service gets paid whether the light is on or not.
Correct.
So we got to make sure that they get paid for our lights working and not our light bulbs that are out, but we still got to pay for wattage,
Right. So, and it's interesting you bring up this whole thing because I told you earlier as I was watching those shows last night, that was the commentary that was coming up about these 2 gentlemen being lights. And light and love go together. Lights. And so the fact that you were getting that message has something to do with, again, serving the people, loving the people of Paterson, because you're a city councilwoman for the city of Paterson, loving the people of Paterson, as well as a pastor where you love everybody. And it's just, again, for me, it's always, like I said, I don't see doing the 2 roles as conflict. I really don't, even though there are a lot who think it is. And I've never seen it as conflict because I think a spiritual voice needs to be in the Congress, needs to be in the Senate, needs to be in the presidency, needs to be a spiritual voice needs to be there, whether people agree with that or not. They do. Yeah. There needs to be some spiritual insight on these decisions that are being made.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you also need mentorship. Right? The Bible says in the multitude of counsel is safety. And so you need people that will mentor you on every level. I have mentors, just life mentors. I have spiritual mentors. I have a pastor, even though I'm a pastor, I have a pastor. I also have political mentors. And so I speak to them on different family mentors, relationship mentors. So I have these different people because if you're not careful, you will become an entity unto yourself, and you will be good for nothing. And so you have to be careful when you're navigating through these different assignments that you don't have people that are helping to guide you or to kind of get you back on track or to, ask you maybe weekly, did you take a break? Did you go? For me, I go to the spa. I take walks, or sometimes I just sit like in a park or whatever. So I take these breaks for myself because of all these different assignments that God has me juggling and navigating. I have to make sure that I'm not overwhelmed or get to a place where I could become burnt out.
That's absolutely right.
I think that is a very important thing for people that are doing different assignments, whether it's pastoring, principalship, teaching, business, whatever you're doing. You have to always fit in your schedule. It's called the break.
Right.
You got to make sure you take a break, whether it's vacation. Say, for us, we work in Paterson, so and I have nothing against the nail salons in our city, but I get my nails done in Totowa, right? At a spot. I barely see any Paterson people there, and the reason why I do it is a break. I normally get my pedicure in Wayne. Same thing. Barely see anyone from Paterson there. And it's called the break because if you're not taking these breaks for yourself, a lot of times you'll be so bogged down and so weighted that you'll be taking on stuff that God is not even a part of your assignment. So you got to be clear to what you've been called to do. And when you get unclear, that's when a mentor or God will send someone to tell you, take it easy.
That's right.
Or step back.
That's significant that you say that because I'm making a big deal at the fact that you do multiple things. And for those who do multiple things like that, if you don't take a break, you will burn out. And we share the story all the time about if you fly on the plane, the first thing that the flight attendants will tell you is put on your oxygen mask first before you try to help anybody around you, whether it's children or whoever's sitting next to you, whatever. They tell you put on your oxygen mask first. And then biblically, if you look at that, you see where Jesus took breaks. Yeah. Where he would go off to himself. He just wanted to go somewhere and be quiet. So it is extremely important. So we've talked about Lilisa, the pastor, Lilisa, the preacher, Lilisa, the school board member, Lilisa, the city council member. But before all of that or during that was Lilisa, the author. Yeah. And so let's refresh the audience's memory of like your first book or so, and we then work our way up to this one, which is different from all the other ones.
Yes. So my very first book, which I'm really proud of, is my book called You Are Worth More Than That. So some years ago, I wrote this book talking about the transformative nature of the butterfly, starting off in a caterpillar state, moving into the cocoon and going to a butterfly. And I talked about the ugly stages of life when I dealt with low self-esteem, when I dealt with suicidal tendencies, depression, felt like I could not fit in, and then how I went into these dark places and how God metamorphosized my life and allowed me to become this beautiful soaring butterfly. But the thing that people don't understand, the ugly natures of life or the cultivating parts of our life, that is the longest process because the lifespan of a butterfly is only about 28 to 33 days. Most people don't even know that. And it's connected to Jesus. The 30 years of all the serving and the work that he was doing, being cultivated and trained for only 3.5 years of ministry. And so that book talks about you were born to fly. It talks about transforming into a butterfly. It talks about, may I have your ID, please, how we wear these masks and we don't understand who we are. And so from there, I had a conference to match that book. Then the next book that I was able to do, it was a manual. It was a leadership manual where it was for corporate and then it was for the church. So it talks about the dynamics of what is a leader. It talks about the natures of leadership. And so that manual has been going out. Then I did a little pamphlet. It was like a You're Worth More Than That small little pamphlet booklet, which we use and put like ribbons on the end of them. So I had like quotes that were in the book that was given out. Then I did a 52-week devotional. It was called Just Say It, Words of Affirmation. And in that book, every week, there were different topics like there's purpose in your pain, or prayer changes everything. And every week, there was a different topic that you could go through. Most people, when they got that book, what they would do with that book is they went through the whole book, and then they went back and said, okay, let me go to week 7. Let me go to week 8. And so that book became a movement with T-shirts and a conference as well. So that book is out as well. And so with all of these books, all of these things that I had worked on and that are out in circulation, I'm a single mom. I have 4 children. My daughter's a teacher. She's 28. She's a teacher here in Paterson. And so we always say to my youngest son, who will be 16 in 2 weeks, we always ask him the question, like, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Right.
I think that's a question that a lot of people ask their children. What do you want to be when you grow up? And at that stage, we all know that the response is the same. They barely know. Or 1 week is this, next week is this, next month is that. So I said, you know what, I need to do something that will impact our children, to make them think about some professions or some areas that, whether they know about it or not, will be beneficial to their growth as they become, right? It's like the book Lady Michelle Obama, Becoming, because they're in a place of where they are being now, but they will be becoming adults, and these are some of the professions. So the book starts off by my daughter asking Josiah, which is my son's name, what do you want to be when you grow up? And, of course, you're in a class setting, so he raises his hand. And then there's different professions. I want to be an engineer, and this is why. I want to be a scientist. This is why. I want to be a teacher. I want to be the president of the United States of America. And then the book ends by saying, which is my favorite page, he sits there with his hands under his chin, and he said, but most days I just like being me. Because a lot of times we push kids so hard that they don't have time to really be children. And so we have to remember that we have to allow these kids to be kids and still navigate them to a place of greatness. And so this book, you know, I'm working on it, that this book, I believe, needs to be in our schools, in our public schools, so that our kids, you know, it could be a jump start to let kids see some of the professions. They're not all of them, but they're different professions, like an astronaut,
right,
firefighter, police officer, basketball champion, and different things that, you know, we say doctor and president and a singer on Broadway. And so we have this book, and it has the color. I thank Christopher Fabar Muhammad for the illustrations of the book, but I think it's important to understand careers. So I'm really excited. This book is like fresh. It's only a couple months old, so it's my new baby. And it's been selling really, really well. I mean, people have bought it. It's on my website, drlilisamims.com, or if you're on social media, my Facebook page is Lilisa Mimms, Instagram is T Mimms. So if you would like to get the book, please reach out to me. If you're in Paterson, just inbox me on Facebook, or you can call me, and we can make an arrangement, and you can come and definitely pick up this book. I think it would be not just great for now, but I think it's going to impact the years to come for our children, because we have to make sure that we impart unto our children wisdom. We have to make sure we instill into them knowledge. Like in my family lineage, my grandmother was very smart. You know, she's from the South.
Right.
They didn't have the opportunity that we have. But, I mean, very educated. Then my mom, very educated, has a doctorate degree as well. Very, very smart. I don't even know how many schools my mom went to. She went to many schools, right? So that went down to me, where I hold my doctorate, you know, love education. And now my daughter is in education, and she's in school right now for her doctoral degree.
All right now.
With straight A's, you know. So it's a part of our DNA to do it. So no matter through the navigation, it's like no matter what arena that I'm in, I'm always tied to education, which is my baby. Like,
right.
That's a part of of my makeup, my chromosomes. It's just in my DNA to be a part of that, because it's so important for us to pour into our children to make sure we make a impact with them. The other day last week I found out that our young people, Soap City Cardinals, 9-year-old, 11-year-old, 12, 13-year-olds, they were going to the Nationals, their football team. My kids played sports, and I was like, oh, they're going to the Nationals. What can we do for them? So I do them like a private little dinner for the coaches and the team. And they came out, we danced. They were dancing. I jumped in, danced with them, gave them citations, and then I gave them what really was great. I was given by TD Bank $10 they call WOW cards.
Right.
So it was a $10 savings certificate to start a bank account. And let me tell you, they were like, we always give names to people. Can we give you a name? And I'm like, sure. So my name with the team is Money Mimms, right? So after that event, people saw it on social media. They inboxed me and was like, well, how did you do that for them? And then Nifty Lions is going. I said, well, when is Nifty going? Well, Nifty Lions is taking the bus, and they were leaving last night. So I'm like, okay, you only said a word. So what I did was I reached out to Subway. I was like, I need these sandwiches. How much are they? Let me pay for the sandwiches. So I went to Subway. I had them delivered to the bus.
Right.
We met them at the bus, right? Met them at the bus. My fire guy was there. The police, I called Councilwoman Cotton. She showed up, delivered lunch boxes to all the kids. Nice healthy turkey sandwich in there, cookies, chips, bottled water for all the kids. Councilwoman Cotton came, she gave snacks to the kids. Even the newspaper, Steve Lennox, Tapper to Paterson, he brought cookies. I made a phone call. I said, you know what, we need to send our kids off in South. Can we get a police escort? We got a police escort that led our kids to the highway. Those kids will never, ever forget it.
That's right.
We got a bus, did a pep rally for them, and did a prayer. And they were like, they will never forget it. So these are things that we have to do. We're not doing it for likes, because remember, it's never about us. It's always about Jesus. And so these kids, those parents, will never forget that experience, because we don't know. Maybe they were thinking nobody cares.
Right.
The kids were like, well, oh, who are these people? They call themselves whatever. And God is like, no, it's not about your title. It's about the heart of the service.
No,
right?
That's absolutely right. And interestingly enough, some of my students were between those two teams, on both of those teams, some of my students were heading down. I know with the Nifty Lions as well as the Cardinals, I had students from my school who were going down because we had to give them their schoolwork. They'll be gone for about a week. And we gave them their schoolwork in advance. Said you will be out of school, but you still got to do the work. But we were excited for them as well. But see, listen to what you're saying. Again, back to the whole thing about making life better for others. And that's why, regardless of the position or the title, whether it's pastor, preacher, councilwoman, school board member, whatever, all of those positions have been about making life better for somebody else.
Yeah.
And even with the books, because when you talk about and this is where, because it really is for kids, especially depending on which community, because there's different priorities of education in different parts, especially depending upon the economics. So for kids to really make that connection between, I have to get my education in order for me to be able to be whatever it is I want to be. Your book, When I Grow Up, it just starts throwing some thoughts out. And while I was sitting here, you were talking, I pulled up the Occupational Outlook Handbook. And I'm always amazed at that, because there's just thousands of choices. And most kids know the standards, the doctor, lawyer, teacher, this and the other. But there's some really obscure careers out there that they have. I was sitting here looking at one of them that, some of these careers you just don't even give thought to. But I saw something about airbag creator or something like that. Like the airbags that's in your car?
Wow.
Somebody had to make that. There's things that we just take for granted, not realizing, wait a minute, somebody had to create that. Somebody had to come up with that. But that's a career. That's a career choice. So I'm looking at animal pathologists, and I'm just scrolling through right now. Applied anthropologists, appointment clerks, apprentice brick masons. Let's see. Now that's just in the A's, because it goes A to Z. I'm looking under B, beam builders. Bean roasters, BEAN roasters. So my point is the fact that you're even getting them at a young age to start thinking about and connecting education with career is a wonderful thing. And as an educator who works in education, I thank you, because our kids need to connect those dots between why they're getting their education. Because I talk to kids all the time. I say, now look, we're trying to prepare you to be able to make however amount of money you want legally. Because regardless, as a human being who's on the planet, you are going to have money. There is no getting around that. You are good. So there's only two ways to make money: legally or illegally. And we're trying to set you up to make your money legally. That's kind of, they'll tell you, what's Mr. Medley's speech? They'll give you a few of them, but that's one of them. So the fact that your book is now pointing them in that direction, and especially at an early age, especially at a young age, I know that has to be a blessing. And I love the cover, because I saw something about that was locally designed. Yes,
it was. Yep. Christopher Fabar Muhammad is a Patersonian. And that's why I was like, I went to him, I said, I would love for you to, and I remember meeting him at William Paterson in the library. And we were sitting there, and when I was sharing with him this project, he was like, wow. Like, sometimes you get something and it's almost like so easy, and you're like, wow, why didn't I think of that? Like, that's right. And so I remember when we were done, he came back and he was like, you know what, we should have done engineer, and there was another one, I can't think of the last two. And so we added it. So this was like a 2-year project, because it was finished within a year, but then the next year I was in campaign mode. So I kind of put it on the shelf and then released it like after I got elected, because I was like, oh my God, I got to get, this off the shelf. The print company called me and said, we still have your stuff, because it was at the print company ready to go. But I was like in campaign mode, just left it there. And I was like, I went to them and I was like, yeah, let's push it. It's time to release it. And so I just want to shout him out for his patience. He did this by hand stencil. It wasn't like he had a machine and he could draw. He did this by hand, every page. And I'm grateful for the print company that was able to take his hand design and then cultivate it into the pages. So just some great work. Christopher Fabar Muhammad does amazing things in our community. He's done murals and some of our basketball courts. He's done the work there. And so I highly recommend him for any of your artistic needs, murals, designs, illustrations of books. And I just think he's amazing. And I'm grateful that he was able to partner with me on this project.
But see, again, that's outstanding that, again, you were able to use local talent. Because even when I was promoting this show last night and this morning, I was making sure that folks in this area understood, because I have guests that, call from around the world, around the country. And I also have local guests that call. And I always make a really big deal on my local guests, because I need the folks from Paterson to understand, one, we're here. Because, it's kind of like that verse in the Bible when they say, can anything good come out of it? Folks do that. Folks do that with Paterson a lot. Can anything good come out of Paterson? Yes. A whole lot of good comes out of Paterson. And we get hit like that the same way with my school. Can anything good come out of Napier Academy? Can anything good come out of School 4? Yes. And so the fact that this is a local person that wrote the book and a local person who designed the cover, that's a big deal.
Yes. And you want to make sure when you're out, I talk about going in different rooms, right? So I said, the first thing is to get to the room. But when you get in the room, what do? Like sometimes we get so excited. I'm going to a concert to see so-and-so. But I'm like, okay, but you're in the room.
Right.
If you were able to get to them one-on-one, what would you do? I remember we had Lady Tammy Murphy come to our church.
Right.
And she has kids. So when she came, I gave her a gift. And guess what the gift was? When I grow up, it was the book.
That's right.
She's the governor's wife of New Jersey,
That's right.
I'm going to make sure she has this book. I have the opportunity where I'm going to see Lady Michelle Obama. I'm going to be in the room. And guess what she's going to get? she's going to get the book.
I don't blame you. Two can trade books. She give you Becoming, and you give her When I Grow Up.
Absolutely, right?
That's right.
You know, a lot of people, they're like, no, but it was about going to see her. No, if God allowed you in the room, it's not about a one-way exchange.
Right.
It's about you making an exchange. And guess what? The Secret Service, they'll look at it, and she'll remember that most people would not even do that. They wouldn't even think to do that. But you got to be able, every time you get in these rooms, it's the elevator speech approach. You got to have yourself ready to sell yourself and set yourself apart from other people. That's why you see people go to concerts and they have like the person's name all over their face and makeup, or they have outfit made with the person on it because if the camera catches it, now they become the highlight. And people are like, well, I was on the front row. Yeah, but you were just on the front row.
That's right.
Yeah. So you got to be able to get in the room. Like, that's so important to get in the room and be able to make an impact. So when your product may be locally on a shelf, you want your product to be outside of the country or outside of Paterson.
That's absolutely right.
Important.
And interestingly, you would bring that up because as you were running your campaign, because, you know, listening audience, like I said, I've known now Lilisa, you know, based on her writing, you know, since her first book when she was on the show, and I was telling you about that forum that we had, you know, sponsored by Gilmore. And as she's progressed through, I always say, yeah, I know Lilisa, but as she was running the campaign for the city council, I mean, it was very few places I could go where I didn't see your ad, your face. I mean, I'm coming down Broadway, 33rd, the big sign there. So I said, all right, go ahead, Lilisa. And then I'm riding down Route 80. You had one of the lit ups. So I said, go ahead, Lilisa. But it is funny. I know her. Like, see the lady on that sign there? I know her. But you're absolutely right. The presence. You need to be able to maximize it. That's right. But I did take notes. There was very few places around the city I didn't see one of your campaign ads, and it was, you know, good job, because that's my background. I
hope my campaign manager is listening, because he was like, I don't think this is gonna work. I'm like, the Lord told me to do it. And my strategist, Mike Williams, I'm gonna make sure he listens to this, because he kept saying, we're not dealing with spirits here. We're dealing with deadlines. We got target dates and stuff. I'm like, you deal with that, and I'm dealing with the spirit. Whatever he tells me to do, I'm doing it. I'm doing the colors, he said.
Right, the purple and everything. That's right.
Yeah. So it was we laugh about it now because, you know, after a while, they got on board with the spirit. You know, like, okay, the spirit right. I was like, I told you the spirit told me, you know. So we laugh about it to this day, but, you know, they begin to realize, because like I said throughout my campaign, we're not here as politicians. Like, this is still ministry. When we got my campaign headquarters, we moved in on a Monday. Someone was shot 4 times on a Wednesday, like 4 blocks away.
Wow.
I didn't stay in the headquarters. Before you knew it, I was walking down the street. I was down there at the scene, praying for life at the scene. And so a lot of times people look and go, well, it's politics, whatever. People got saved during our campaign.
Right.
Of course, they registered to vote. And some people joined our church as a result of this, you know, doing the work of ministry. Because for me, I'm like, oh, this is evangelism. I'm out here. Could you pray for me? My daughter's sick. And then they saw you out there like, oh, Pastor Mimms, how are you? Look, they ain't say, oh, Councilwoman Medley.
Right.
Like, oh, Pastor, we need your prayer. So I'm praying for them, and I'm like, oh, by the way, I'm running. So
that's right. I know that's right. But see, again, if people look at us historically, for African Americans, we've gotten to where we've gotten through. The church played a major, if not the most important role in the civil rights movement and all of our movements. It was the church. And when you start looking at Martin Luther King Jr. and all, they came out of the church. So when folks say, well, you know, social and political should not be a part of the church, they're wrong, because the church has always been a part of social, any major movement that's moved us.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And we have to be able, you know, like I go to Mr. G's a lot. And I mean, of course, I go for the grits.
Right. I know that's right. I'm there for the catfish. I'm there. I know.
Yes.
I know.
But I also go because I want to hear the stories from Mr. G. Like, he is a icon in our community that was connected to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He knew so many people, so I always go to listen to him about the stories. Like, when I ran for office, I went to him. Like,
Right.
I wanted him to tell me. If he would have been one of the people to tell me, like, I don't know about, I would have been like, okay, I'm going to sit myself to the side,
Right.
But he gave me so much wisdom. And, I mean, so many things he said to me that I will never forget. Even yesterday, we were at the planting of the trees at the new Martin Luther King Memorial Learning Park that will be on Governor Auburn.
Right.
And I left from there and went by Mr. G's. And he came to the table and shared some stuff. I didn't know that he listens to me on the council and he's watching what I do. And he shared some stuff. And it just really touched my heart, when I hear the elders of our community speak well, of the work that you're doing. And we know that it's the work of God. Like,
absolutely.
In my own strength, I could never do this because it is a lot of work. It's very time consuming, it's arduous, and so I understand that if I'm going to do it, I have to have the grace of God.
Right.
I have to have the strength of God, and I also have to be like Jesus on the seventh day, and he rested.
I know that's right.
So every time they have something, I may not be there. I may not be at every press conference. I may not be at every town hall, and it's not that I don't care, but there's just moments that I have to take time to refuel. I got to go to the resting area and stop there and lay over for a minute and get myself back together to get back on the assignment. And so I'm really clear to that. And I really appreciate people like yourself, blazing trails in education, doing amazing things with our kids down in the First Ward. It is just amazing. I know a lot of parents that speak well of the work that you do. And so I know I'm the invited guest, but I mean, I cannot leave your show without making sure you understand and know that the work that you're doing is remarkable and that we see it, we appreciate it, and continue to keep doing it for another 50 years if you want to do it. But keep doing it and passing those mantles and batons to the next generation.
Well, thank you so much, and it is very much appreciated because, as you know, just like the principalship is not much different from the pastorship in terms of we have the academics, you all have the spiritual, but in terms of how it's viewed is very similar in terms of one, people think it's easy, like you were talking about earlier about the criticism, and it's a thankless job. It can be a very thankless, but it's an extremely rewarding job. Because when you get students who come back to you years later and say, you know what, I didn't understand what you were saying then, but I get it now. Or, you know what, I thought you were mean then, but I see you really did care for me. Or a kid comes up and says, yeah, he's always been like that, but he's fair. But it's a day-to-day struggle. But again, it's about trying to make life better for someone else. I've been to the point, I'm in the point now where I've been in the game kind of sort of long enough where I'm actually getting kids of students I had when I was teaching. And I actually have kids in my school now who are kids of students I had when they were in 8th grade when I was teaching at school 6. And much appreciated. And again, it's about, because my thinking is this, I'm like you, and going back, you were talking about Verizon. I did 15 years at AT&T, and they were headquartered down. Matter of fact, Verizon has the building that was the AT&T headquarters down in Basking Ridge now. And I trooped down there for 15 years, and the perks, like you talk about the limos and all that, I remember it well. Same deal. I mean, I had wonderful perks, but it just wasn't doing for me inside what education does for me in terms of being able to touch other spirits and to leave the legacy and to really make the difference. I mean, corporate was corporate. It was good. And like I'm telling you, when I tell you the opportunity to meet the famous people and travel around the world, this, that, and the other, I couldn't beat it for that. But inside of me, it just wasn't doing it. And so when I got back into the education world, which was where my heart was to begin with, that connected for me. But my thing is this, like, for me, because I went to Paterson Public Schools as well, School 15, Martin Luther King when it was downtown, Eastside High School, up here at William Paterson College, Fairleigh Dickinson University, back at William Paterson College again. And my thinking was this, and I know it's all God, but at the same time, I said, if it can happen for me as an African-American male growing up in the 5th Ward of Paterson, because I grew up, matter of fact, ironically enough, I was a few blocks down on Pearl, where your church is on the other end of Pearl. I was down between Rosa Parks and East 18th. That's where I grew up, 2 blocks away over from Eastside High School. And my thinking is, if it can happen for me, we can make it happen for these kids.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I remember my teachers at School 15, Martin Luther King, Eastside. I remember all of them well. Matter of fact, me and my 2nd grade teacher still keep in contact with each other. She texted me a Thanksgiving greeting the other day. She's like 80 plus years old, but we still contact each other. and it's like, cause you're talking about that mentoring and that wisdom and all that. I still have folks from back in my grammar school days that I talk with if they're still alive. So that's what drives me, that if God can do this for me, God can do that for you. And if I'm one of the instruments and the vessels of whom he uses to do that, then so be it. Yes.
Yeah, and that's what you want to do. You want to leave a legacy that cannot be erased. What will you be remembered by? You know, people, we know on our tombstone is the birth date and the end date, but what are you doing in the dash? What's in the middle? What have you done? You know, I tell people, even if say you work AT&T, Verizon, wherever you work, what will people remember you by?
Right.
On the school board, what will people remember you by?
Right.
Being on the top, what will they remember you by? And those things are important. You know, with my children, I'm almost an empty nester, and I'm really grateful about that. Some days it seems like it's coming closer. Some days it's going further away from that. But it's just a blessing to see that my kids are older. My older three, my son is coming home from college in a couple weeks. My daughter is in her doctorate. My oldest son, he's working. He has his children. And then my youngest son, he's in high school. So it's just amazing to see, you know, back when I was in my 20s, had my daughter. Thank God for a support system, my parents and all that, because there's so many people that have children young, and then they don't have that support system.
That's
and it's
right.
a struggle. And there are still some days of struggle. But I tell people all the time, I don't look like what I've been through.
I know that's right.
So I am really grateful to God for the support system, for those people that pushed me, the hard lessons that I learned, making bad choices, you know, throughout life, and being able to have a bounce back spirit from all of those things. And, you know, I share it with the women. I talk to them about being molested. I talk to them about me being mugged. I talk to them about the low self-esteem. I go through all of those things that I've endured through life and have come out as a soaring butterfly, because I tell them there's always the transformation and a metamorphosis that happens through the course of life. So you can't stay the caterpillar forever. You got to get in the cocoon, and then when it's time, you got to bust out. You don't need nobody. You're not going to need someone to crack the cocoon open. When it's time for the butterfly to appear, it's able to bust itself out of the cocoon through the grace of God, because God knows the timing when it's our time to come out of there and fly. And so we just do and operate through that, through what God is doing and how he wants it done. And then we just see the beauty. Like, if we open our eyes through the lenses of God, we'll find good in everybody and every situation. No matter how bad it is, there's always some good down in there.
Right.
Because God said when he made it, it was good. Now, things could have corrupted it, but God said whatever he made, it was good.
That's right.
And so we have to see people from the lens of God and from that perspective that whatever God said is good is good. I don't care what is going on with it, how it appears. And that's my speech for Paterson. I believe it's a better Paterson. I say it every day that I see things changing. I see the defibrillators being placed in the hands of many people here.
Right.
And this city is being shot back to life in every avenue, every boulevard, every street corner. I have the map of the city. I have it on my Bombay chest in my living room. And I've been praying over it so hard that it's like almost torn, but I refuse to get rid of it because I've laid hands like all over the city, in my living room in prayer. And I think it's very important that we continue to speak positive and well of our community instead of being negative. And, you know, there's things that could be said negatively, but I believe there's so many great things happening that override these small pockets of the negative. And I don't want nobody else speaking negative of Paterson.
I know that's right. And I agree with you. I think because I know Andre well as well. And I know his spirit as well. I think it is taken on the leadership and the new members of you all joining the council. Paterson has taken on a different spirit. I mean, we still have our struggles like any other city, but it's a different spirit. So I agree with you in terms of where we're headed. And again, back to what you just said about praying for the city. That's where, for me, you need that spiritual presence on the council. So I tell you what's going to happen in terms of, so at some point, I'm gonna get you on our. We're gonna connect calendars, and I'm gonna have you come over and read when I grow up with our second, third, fourth graders or whatever. So we'll have to schedule the time for you to come over and read the book with them.
Absolutely, I will be honored.
And then just at your convenience, or whatever, you let me know what date is on, and we'll, unless it's a testing day, if it's not a state testing day, we'll rearrange our schedule to have you read to them. And then
absolutely.
And then the next thing is we've come down to the end. So we've talked about, and like I said, a listening audience, I consider Dr. Mimms a Renaissance woman for sure, because I could put author in front of her. I could put pastor in front of her. I could put city councilwoman in front of her. I could put school board member in front of her, and mother in front of her, and on and on. But at this time, you have the opportunity to promote. This is your time to be in the room, because I'm going to shut the mic off and you can promote the book and any of your workshops or anything you want. The only thing you can't do is the dollar amount. That's the only thing, because at that point, if folks get in contact with you, all work that out. So anything short of the dollar amount, I'm shutting the mic off, and it's your time to be in the room and promote.
Thank you so much. Once again, let me thank you, Mark, for this great opportunity to be a part of this wonderful show on today. I just think it's amazing to be in the room with you. This opportunity has been great. I have authored a few books. You're Worth More Than That, the Just Say It 52-week devotional, my children's book, When I Grow Up, which I believe every child, every parent, grandparent, guardian, you need to pick up this book. I mean, it is so important to the developmental process of our kids, to get them to start thinking about career choices, opportunities, so that they can start thinking how to make money legally. I love how Mark said that, to make legal money and to make sure they're making an impact on their life. You can get my book at drlisamimms.com, or you can reach out to me. My cell phone number is 973-902-1957. 973-902-1957. You can email me. My name is Lilisa, Lilisa, Mimms, MIMMS, @gmail.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on social media. Facebook is Lilisa Mimms. I'm on Twitter as Lilisa Mimms, and I am on Instagram as Team Mimms, TEAMMIMMS. Please reach out to me. Give me some feedback. I text, I email, I like to write back, so please reach out to me. I'm really excited. Make sure you get this book, When I Grow Up. 52 weeks, Just Say It, weeks of devotional. You're Worth More Than That. Please reach out to me. These books will bless your life. We need to make sure we get these books, have them in our library, and then we impart into others the wisdom and the knowledge that's been given. God bless you, and thank you so much. This has been wonderful. This has been a wonderful experience. I am enjoying serving the people of God through the grace of God. God bless you.
I know that's right. One quick question for you. Is it also available in digital form from Amazon, like on the Kindle?
It is not yet.
It's not yet. Okay, so we get the hard copy. So I'm going to definitely, like I said, I'm going to get a copy. I'm going to have you come to the school, and you can read with our second, third, fourth graders, or even our eighth graders for that matter. Matter of fact, some of the kids that was on that football team is on my eighth graders. So when they see you, they'll know exactly who you are. Because they need to understand what they want to be when they grow up too. But in any event, so either before the holidays or either after the holidays, either way, whenever the time is, we're going to get together and have you read the book to the kids.
I will be honored.
And I would be honored to have you there. Thank you so much for rising early. It's been a blast. I do record the show. Looks like everything is working the way it's supposed to. I will edit it and then send you an MP3 link. You can use it as you want. Also, I put it on my YouTube channel. It's an archive. It'll be there for those who didn't rise early with us. So they'll be able to hear the interview again. And again, you can use any of them once I email them to you any way you choose.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored, and thank you for inviting me. I'm really humbled by this opportunity.
All right. Well, I tell you what, have a wonderfully blessed life. I usually tell you, have a blessed week, have a blessed day, blessed minute, but continue to have a blessed life.
I like that. And you do the same. I like that one.
Thank you. All right. Enjoy the rest of the day.
You too. God bless you.
Take care now.